السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.
بسم الله.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. وبيان القسم الثالث وهو القياس بعلة مستنبطة بالرأي والاجتهاد ظاهرا. So the third type of qiyas, which is the qiyas where the illah is a certain truth reflection, and it is clear. وتحقيق ذلك إذا وجدنا وصفا مناسبا للحكم وهو بحال يوجب ثبوت الحكم. So the details of this is that when we find a characteristic which is suitable for the ruling, then such it necessitates the application of the ruling.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسول الكريم. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. وتب علينا يا مولانا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم. رب اشرح لنا صدورنا ويسر لنا أمورنا واحفظ عقدة من لساننا يفقهوا قولنا. اللهم نوّر قلوبنا بمعرفتك واشرح صدورنا بنور كتابك وسنة نبيك واحفظنا أن زلل وخطأ في بيان مرادك. So now we continue with the next part, which is the last. And remember, we're discussing where the illah is derived from. So we previously discussed where the illah is clearly mentioned by the Quran, or clearly mentioned by the Sunnah, or via ijma. Now, when the illah is not mentioned, then the only resort and the last resort is to make qiyas. What is discussing now? وبيان القسم الثالث. And the explanation of the third type. Now, you've got third type here, but we were counting four actually, because Quran, Sunnah, Ijma, and Qiyas. But he's counted as the third type because he puts Quran and Sunnah together. That illah which is derived from the Quran and the Sunnah mention it clearly. He counts that as one, Ijma as two, and Qiyas as three. وهو القياس بعلة مستنبطة بالرأي والاجتهاد. What is the third type? It is that, as you'll see in the end also, it does the same thing. And it gives the hukm of each. That is the third type way of how we arrive at the illah. It is to qiyas bi'illatin. It is to make qiyas by means of an illah, which is derived, which is extracted by means of reflection and consideration into the nusus. ظاهر is the khabar. وهو القياس بعلة مستمدة بالرأي والاجتهاد ظاهر. وتحقيق ذلك, and the explanation of that, and of how a person derives at an illah via ijtihad or via qiyas. إذا وجدنا وصفا مناسبا للحكم. So the mujtahid will examine the text, whether it be the Quran or the Sunnah, will examine the text, and he will apply his mind looking for clues as to what the possible reason for this hukam can be. Right? But like, just take, for example, let's take alcohol. Obviously, alcohol already told us it's because of Quran. Let's just pretend for purposes, theoretically speaking, Quran hadn't told us that it was because of Quran, right? So we will look into the entire surah. What the alcohol makes it haram? Can it be the color of the alcohol? Can it be the fact that it's a liquid? Can it be the fact that it's in a bottle? And so on and so forth. So you will take out all the possibilities, and then you will sift through that. No, it can't be because of color. It can't be because it's a liquid, and so on and so forth, until he derives at an illah which is most appropriate and most suitable in the Sharia for the possible reason, as a possible reason for that particular hukam. And so now it comes to sukran. Can it be because of intoxication? So you find that one of the maqasid of the Sharia is to protect the aql, to look after the aql, to protect one's sanity and one's mind. So that fits in with the Sharia. So most likely, al ghalib dhan, most likely, most probable, this is the reason why. And obviously there are further tests for the mujtahid to see whether whether it holds up or not. Okay, so إذا وجدنا, so once we have found a wasf, meaning an illa, which we deem to be appropriate for the hukam, وهو بحال يوجب ثبوت الحكم, and it meaning that this appropriate sifa, this appropriate illa, what we assume to be the appropriate illa, is in such a condition, such a state, that it necessitates the establishment of the ruling. ويتقاضوا بالنظر إليه, and it also demands it demands the hukam. It necessitates the hukam and demands and it's well, يتقاضى mostly is more or less the same as yujibu. So this is asful bayan, you could say. It necessitates the establishment of the hukam بالنظر إليه, by considering this illatul munasib, and by considering this illa which to our minds, the mujtahid's mind, is most appropriate. وقد اقترن به الحكم في موضع الإجماع, and indeed the condition is that the hukam has been attached to it in another place of agreement. And what will we do? يضاف الحكم إليه. So إذا وجدنا till the end is the shart, يضاف is the jaza. So if we find all this, we find a illat which is appropriate. It is in such a state that it demands the occurrence of the hukam, the establishment of the hukam. And prior to this, we also see that it did stand as a viable hukam, as a viable illah, in a place of agreement. Here, ijma doesn't refer to the ijma, the consensus of the ummah. Here, ijma means that yourself, as the one who is extracting the illah, mu'allil, and the one who normally raises objection against you, your opponent, your khasam, you are both in agreement that this is an illah. It was used by the Sharia in some place or the other. We both agree that this is a valid illah in the Sharia. Okay? So here, ijma, just make a note, doesn't refer to consensus of opinion, ijma, the ijma shari, which we did previous to this. Here, ijma means there's an agreement between yourself and your opponent, or the questioner, or the one raising the objections. There's an agreement between the two of you that this is such an illah that the Sharia has accepted. Then what will happen? يضاف الحكم إليه, we will attribute, confer the ruling to that particular masala. Why? للمناسبة, because it is most appropriate. Not because لا لشهادة الشرع بكون إلة, not because the Sharia has testified to it being an illah. Okay? So long John story, what he's basically saying here is the reason why we apply the illah in qiyas is obviously not because the Sharia says so, because we don't have a text. We don't have it clear cut by the Sharia. That's why we have to go to qiyas. The Sharia hasn't told us that this is an illah, but rather because it seems to be the most likely reason, Wallah alam, the munasib, it is most likely that this could be the reason why this particular hukam has been implemented by the Sharia. Okay?
Sure.
Understood? Barakallah feekum. وَنَذِيرُ, the example, I'm giving an example from like everyday life, just so that we can understand what we mean by that. إذا رأينا شخصا, if we see a person, أعطى فقيرا درهما, see a person giving a fakir, a poor person, an indigent person, 1 dirham. So what will we deduce from that? What could be the possible motive for this person giving the beggar a dirham? Does he owe the beggar a dirham? Is he hiring the beggar to do something for him? Or is he just donating donating, giving charity in order to earn a reward in the akhirah. So outwardly, the most likely, the most munasib, the most appropriate possibility for him intention that he's giving this poor person, this indigent person money, is so that he can earn a reward for his charity. Understood? So after sifting through the possible motives for giving the money, we reached this conclusion. It doesn't seem that this is the type of person who could borrow this person money, and now he's returning what money that he borrowed. It also doesn't seem outwardly that this person is being hired by the person giving the money for some job or for some work. Okay, because they are maybe on the side of the street, this person is leaning out of his car's window, whatever the case is. There are certain signs that indicate that you can't be hiding him for something or paying him for some job. So the most likely reason that you might be giving the money is that he's giving charity, intending thereby to earn a reward. So ghalaba ala dhann, so the most likely thought that will come to one's mind. So the most likely thought, the most likely consideration for this is أن الإعطاء لدفع حاجة الفقير. That him giving the charity is in order to remove some need of the poor person. And وتحصيل مصالح الثواب, and in order for him to obtain the benefit of reward or the benefits that accrue with reward from giving poor people some charity. Okay?
Yeah.
So he is seeing to his worldly needs in order to accrue thawab. This is the most likely possibility, the most probable reason why this person is giving this poor person money. Okay, so in the same way, إذا عرف هذا, so if you understand this, فنقول then after we will say. So the same thing with qiyas. We've got a hukam, we don't know why the hukam has been implemented because the Sharia didn't tell us. In this particular instance, like it told us in other places. And so in those places here, there was sukut on the illat. But now we're trying to use this hukam or this masla as a basis for a new masla which has occurred. We're trying to use it as a precedent for some new occurrence. But before we can do that, we need to see whether this new masala shares the same illa what it has in common with this. Only then can we transfer the hukam from the mansus, from the text, Quranic text or the hadith text to this new masala. So after applying our minds, in the same way like how we didn't know what this person's intention was, by applying our minds, looking at the possibilities and the signs and the clues outwardly, we derived at the most likely conclusion. So in the same way, after looking at and studying the text and looking at the hadith and other ayat of the Quran and so on and so forth, and the Arabic language and so forth, the mujtahid will come up that this seems to be the most likely illa. From all the possibilities, this is the most likely and the most appropriate. So فنقول إذا رأينا وصفا مناسبا للحكم, and if we notice, if we see or consider an illa which is most appropriate for the ruling. وقد اقترن به الحكم في مواد الإجماع, and the hukam has been applied in a place or in an instance of agreement between ourselves and the questioner or the person raising objections. يغلب الظن بإضافة الحكم إلى ذلك الوصف. Then the most likely thought that comes to the mind is to apply this hukam to that particular illah. In other words, that this hukam came into being because of this illah. وغلبة الظن في الشرع توجب الأمل. And as we did before, that the غلبة الظن, the most likely and the most probable cause or the most probable thought, most probable, the opinion of the greatest probability is valid in the Sharia and necessitates that you act upon it. You can't say, oh no, but you're not 100%, you don't have qat'i as you did before. It's only an assumption, a most likely assumption, beyond a reasonable doubt, fine. but it's still just an assumption. Not 100%, it's 90, 95%, 98%. So we say no, there's such a dhan, ghalabatul dhan in the Sharia is a valid basis to place some action upon, and it will necessitate you acting upon it when in the idami ma fawqahu min ad-dalil, when a higher proof doesn't exist. We don't have proof from Quran, we don't have proof from Sunnah, we don't have proof from Ijma. So then this becomes the next step, this becomes the final step or the final resort for us to draw a conclusion or to draw a ruling from. We did this before, but it's giving another example. في منزلة المسافر, the same status as a musafir, a traveler, إذا غلب على ظني أن بقربه ماء لم يجوز له التيمم, that if it is uppermost in his mind that he assumes it is most likely that there is some water nearby, then it won't be permissible for him to make tayammum. And so he's in a place with him there's no water, in his immediate environment there's no water. He's thinking to himself, you know what, I'm sure I saw a board that there's a town not far from here. Or I see some houses in the distance, some farms in the distance. Most likely there will be water there. So now he can't make tayammum, right? So even though that's an assumption, it's possible that when he comes there, he finds that those are all dilapidated, broken up, nobody's staying there. It's possible that he misread the board and there's no town close by, whatever. But in that moment, it is uppermost in his mind, most likely that there will be some water available a little bit ahead. So now you can't, because that is his uppermost thought, uppermost assumption, it won't be permissible for him to make tayammum. We understand from this what? That the ghalabatul dhan is a valid basis for a person to act upon. Understood?
So it's غلبة الظن after ijtihad or after
Yes,
trying to
ghalabatul
figure it
dhan,
out?
in the case of this, in this case here, is after him applying his mind, making tahari, as it says here, وَعَلَى هَذَا مَسَالِ tahari. And based upon this, of all the other masali of tahari. Tahari means where the person in that particular situation thinks and ponders for a while. Which way is Qibla, for example? Will I get water here? And so on and so forth. All the different masail of tahari that came before also, and they will come again probably in the fiqh kitab as well. So all the masail of tahari is based upon this, upon the ghalabatul dhan, where the person will apply his mind to the best of ability that I think Qibla is in this way because the sun is here now. Most likely east is that side, and we in South Africa, so we have to face northeast and so forth, which I think is this towards this direction. So that is tahari. Okay, so he's just giving a sort of a similitude, a metaphor, or a example of how a mujtahid will go about doing his work, and how ghalabatul dhan is a valid basis to act upon in Sharia. Okay?
Okay.
So we don't call this ijtihad, we call this tahari when it comes to a normal person, non-mujtahid, applying his mind to arrive at a particular decision so that he can carry out his ibadah. Okay?
شيء جزاك الله.
وحكم هذا القياس أن يبطل بالفرق المناسب. And now what is the hukum of this qiyas? We did the hukum of all the previous ones. What is the hukum of this? So the hukum of this qiyas is that أن يبطل, it will become invalid by pointing out an appropriate indiscretion, an appropriate difference. And I say that what you are saying is an appropriate illa, we don't agree with it, but rather there's a difference between this masala, the makis, and the makis alayh, the original masala. There's a difference between the secondary masala that you're trying to find a hukam for, and the masala that you are, original masala from which you're trying to extract the illat from. It's a very clear-cut, distinct difference between the two. So if that holds up, if this person pointing out the difference and the difference is actually valid, then your qiyas will be invalid. And like I said, there are ways that the mujtahid go about checking whether it is the same or not the same. لأن عنده يوجد مناسب سواه في سورة الحكم. Why? For the somebody that we mentioned before, that the illat must be munasib, it must be appropriate, it must hold up, it must be able to stand up, stand to scrutiny as being an appropriate illah. So when this is not found, and so for لأن عنده يوجد مناسب سواه. So this person here, the person raising the objection, he is found in another illah which is more appropriate or more closer to a Shari illat besides the one that you found. في سورة الحكم in the instance of the حكم. فلا يبقى الظن بإضافة الحكم إليه. So therefore this person's consideration, this person's application of his mind no longer remains such that it can be attached to the hukam. فَلَا يَقْبَلُ الْحُكْمُ إِلَيْهِ. So therefore, the hukam also no longer remains. Since we've broken the illah in simple words, we've broken the illah, we've shown that the illah isn't munasib, as you think. So therefore, the hukam attached also won't remain, it will also fall away. Because why? Otherwise, you will have a hukm without the illah. It's not possible. Yes, sir?
Sure.
Why? لأنه كان بناء على غلبة الظن. Because the hukam was based upon the most likely possibility, or the most likely, the most probable reason. وقد بطل ذلك بالفرق. And that most probable reason has become invalid because of this indiscretion between the two. Or sorry, not indiscretion, this discrepancy between the two. This difference between the two. We've detected the discrepancy between the two. So therefore it will no longer remain as a valid ijtihad, as a valid qiyas. وعلى هذا كان الأمر بالنوع الأولي. Right, so you understood that?
Sure.
Now is giving the example of each. What is the example of the illah found in the Quran and the Sunnah, and the illah found in Ijma, and the illah found via qiyas? What is the status of each? So he's saying هذا كان الأمر بالنوع الأولي بمنزلة الحكم بالشهادة بعد تزكية الشاهد وتعديله. So he said, based upon what we just discussed now, to act upon the first type being that illah which is extracted from the Quran and the Sunnah directly, because it's mentioned clearly. It has the same status as a hukam, as a ruling by the judge, based upon shahada, based upon witnesses, after tazkiyah of the witness and ta'adil of the witness. Right? What is tazkiyah and ta'adil of a witness? So as you know, in Sharia, when you go to the court, the judge will ask for witnesses to be brought forward. It must be two male witnesses, or in certain instances, one male and two females. But obviously, he just won't accept them as at their word. He will listen to their testimony. But then he will investigate these individuals. Who are these individuals? So you will first find out whether they are honest, upright, pious, practicing upon deen. That's called ta'adil. That are they adil? Are they just? Meaning that are they people who speak the truth, follow the Sharia outwardly? Outwardly, they're following all the commands of the Sharia. They're not known to have lied in their life and so forth. Okay, that's ta'adil, adalat. And tazkiyah is an inner condition, meaning that you will even investigate whether there are such people for real. So tazkiyah, you will try to find out about, as far as possible, try and find out about the inner state as well. Meaning that are they like this all the time or just some of the time? Are they like this in public and in private? Or only they're showing a face in public, but in private they're somebody else? Okay? So both zahiran and batinan, you will try to make an investigation as to what type of people they are. And after you're satisfied that no, these are good people, these are honest people, upright people, righteous people, then you will rule according to their testimony. So obviously this is the highest form and the strongest form of testimony. So therefore the judgment based upon that is going to be also correct. In the same way, just like how if the Quran itself is saying that this is a illah, the hadith itself is saying that this is a illah, so then there's no scope for doubt. we can have absolute yaqeen that that is the correct ruling, because it's based upon an illah which the Sharia itself has said is an illah. Okay, so there's no scope for doubt there. ونوع الثاني بمنزلة الشهادة إن ظهور العدالة قبل التزكية. And the second type of the illah, that is which we gain via ijma. This holds the status of giving shahadat, accepting somebody's shahadat testimony after making their ta'adil. So outwardly they look like good people before tazkiyah, but we haven't been able to find anything about the inward condition. So outwardly they look righteous, pious, honest, and so forth, but we don't know for sure whether they are so in reality or not. Okay? So in the same way, ijma is put forth something forward because ijma is quite strong, obviously. But is it really so? If it only came via ijma, not because the Sharia told us, so we can't say whether in reality it really is like that. But because of ijma, it lends a considerable amount of weight and strength. This is going to be very close to the first one. Okay, so that's why it's qat'i as well. Okay, depending on what type of ijma it is, as we did before. And the last type, that illa which is derived via qiyas. وَنَوْءُ الثَّالِثِ بِمَنْزِلَةِ الشَّهَادَةِ الْمَسْتُورِ. This is, it holds the status of a person giving testimony who's mastur. Mastur means to be hidden, to be closed, to be invisible, that type of thing. So yeah, what it means, what? We don't know what the status of this person, of this witness are. We're unable to find out anything about them. So neither outwardly nor the inwardly. So we don't know the status. The status of this person is unknown. So therefore, there is some cloud, some ambiguity over the witness, whether we can be accepted or not. Understand? But it seems most likely they are okay. And it is up to the discretion of the Qadi. He may accept it from other signs, other Qur'an, or he may reject it, depending on which way he is leaning, looking based upon his expertise and his past experience with witnesses. Understood?
Sure.
Okay, so that completes that section. Now we come to Faslun al-As'ilatu or As'ilatu Mutawajjih al-Qiyas. This is basically how do you give answers or respond to somebody else's qiyas. Meaning like in a debate, if you're having a debate or somebody and they put forward some kind of qiyas, how could you possibly break their arguments? How could you possibly reject their argument and so forth? So he mentions there are 8 ways or 8 strategies going about breaking somebody else's qiyas. Obviously, we appropriate and we necessary. So inshallah, we'll try and start that tomorrow. Any questions? Anything you didn't understand?
No, العلماء.
بارك الله فيكم. سبحان الله وبحمده، سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك، نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت، نستغفرك ونتوب